Welcome to the EntrePastors Podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the EntrePastors Podcast on YouTube. I'm John Sanders. I'm one of the co-founders of EntrePastors, and in this episode, you're going to be hearing a conversation that me and my fellow co-founder and co-host Les Hughes had recently with our friend Devin Schurbert. We're titling this one, Blending Ministry and Business Success. And Devin's story is one that we would love to see again and again. A pastor who was involved in somewhat traditional pastoral ministry, got sick and tired of the bumps and bruises along the way of kind of that traditional system and realized there's a better way of doing this. And then shifting into more of a business approach that has him out in the marketplace, still doing ministry, but out in the marketplace experiencing a lot of impact as well as significantly more income than ever was possible inside of the traditional ministry model. So that's another story that we're getting ready to bring to you right now. We're grateful for Devin and his testimony, and we're excited to share the story with you now. So thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. And without any further ado, let's get to this conversation. Here we go. Well, Devin, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the EntrePastors Podcast, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Do you remember how you and I got connected? Because I honestly don't remember how. I think we were introduced mutually by someone. Do you recall? Because I don't.
How about I do? I can picture. She wrote a book.
Oh, Maury Renee.
Maury. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, she's in our business builders community. We absolutely love Maury. I knew it was one of our mutual friends that made an introduction. I just couldn't remember who. So, Devin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why did Maury introduce you as someone that the EntrePastors people needed to know?
Yeah, I believe that when her and I first met, we were talking a lot about what God's calling has been on my life, whether it be from starting churches, starting ministries, building up seven-figure businesses. The heart of it all was about my three adopted children. Two of them are from foster care. And when I look at people and I discuss what does it look like to be all that God's called you to be, for me, it's all about being a father. When I built the churches, when I started ministries, building out the businesses, I wouldn't have done any of it without being all in for my kids. It's about building a legacy, having that influence for my kids, but then also to pass that on to everybody that I come into contact with. And that has been my passion with every single person that I come into contact with is, John and Les, you guys have a story to tell. You guys have something amazing inside of you, a God-given purpose, calling, and assignment. And our job is just to pull that out and be able to help other people be able to see it and to be able to live it as well.
I love that. How old are your kiddos? How long have you been on that journey as a father?
Yeah, so I adopted you're going to follow this little trail I got going on here. So I was married, and when I had gotten married, I adopted her biological daughter. She was 3 at the time. We couldn't have kids, and then we adopted 2 boys from foster care. And so 7 years into that journey, we ended up getting a divorce. She had an affair and chose to be with the other guy. And so now I have a 19-year-old daughter who's an amazing 19-year-old on that journey to figure out life. And then a 16-year-old son and a 15-year-old son.
Got it. So you've been doing this for a little while, and that's so much a part of what is behind your calling of the ministry and the business that you've been involved in. So let's tell a little bit of that story, if you don't mind. I always like to hear people's kind of their church story and then their business story. But I mean, however you want to bring those two worlds together, tell us your story, man.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome introduction because I believe that if we look at the kingdom principles of what God is doing in our lives, Jesus didn't separate his business, his ministry, or his life. He brought them all together as one. And so when we can do that, man, what a powerful testimony that we can have. So I started off by going to Bible college, and it was an amazing journey of getting a piece of paper. You know, we go to get this piece of paper, go work in a church, going to be so excited. Then you go work in a church and for me personally, it was, I don't like this. I don't
Yeah.
like this whatsoever. And it
Can I
was,
pause you there real quick? What
yeah,
was it about the church work that you didn't like? And feel free to be brutally honest. I'm good with it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. For me, it was my passion was to just love on these teenagers and meet them where they were at. And for some reason, as a church plant, there was something wrong. I wouldn't say wrong. It just didn't look good to the church to have these kids smoking cigarettes and drinking outside, even though they were of age. You know, some of them were 21 and whatnot, but out on the church steps. It made the church look bad. And when the youth ministry is bigger than what the church actually was, they felt like they needed to control a little bit, and they gave me an ultimatum:
Hmm.
either you can work with the few kids that are inside the church where the parents are tithing, or you can meet with the other kids and go find someplace else to do.
Hmm.
And I didn't even have to pray about it. Like,
Yeah.
this is family. I'm teaching these kids family, and you've made this a very easy decision. Goodbye. And would you know that a week later, somebody handed me the keys to the YMCA that I had never met
Hmm.
and said,
Wow.
the Lord told me that you
How
were to
about
have
that?
this every Saturday night for something.
Wow.
And they gave us the entire basement. We turned it into 200 kids showing up every single week for a youth ministry in the community center, where we would have never been able to do that in a church building, because now we're telling people stories, playing games, shooting hoops. We had a big band concert, all those things that you can't necessarily do in the church. We were able to do it in the community.
So I'm hearing, unless there's more to the story, I mean, I'm sure there's more to the story, but it sounds like your stint in vocational professional church ministry was a relatively short run. Is that a fair assessment?
I I don't think I ever got a paycheck from a church.
It was really
So
short.
if you want to call that vocational,
So,
sure.
okay, but you get my point though, like
Yeah,
serving
yeah,
that kind of in that traditional context. Because
yeah.
again, there's a lot of full-time pastors listening to this going, I don't get much of a paycheck from the church either. So,
Yep.
um, but what I'm hearing is that there was a transition where you said, I'm still in ministry. It's just ministry is going to look different than the confines of this structure here.
Yeah. I believe that a lot of times we need to look at, what did Jesus actually do? Yeah, he went into the tabernacle, he went into the synagogues and taught. He also just went out and met people where they're at. That's what I loved doing, meeting these kids where they're at, not expecting them to come to something where they were uncomfortable. And that's really how we continued to build multiple different types of ministries, is by going to the skate parks, going to the roller rinks, going to a bowling place, just hanging out and creating a safe place for kids to want to be at, and or to come join at my house. Open up my house for kids to be able to come and just relax. Didn't have to be preaching or sharing anything about the gospel. It was just, hey, here's a safe place for you and your friends to come and be loved. I mean, if we have pizza and you have football on, you're gonna draw kids.
Yeah. So is that then the secret behind your 7-figure success? Was it just the YMCA with teenagers on Saturday nights? Or where does that come into? Where does the business element come into that? Tell us that story.
Yeah, the business aspect comes in because, again, it's those kingdom principles. I saw that what Jesus was doing was raising up from within. And so even through building up this ministry, when I went through the affair, the teenagers took over the youth ministry while I stepped away. And I had been building up these leaders. So when I transitioned and started 2 moving companies, what I did is I brought these teens, and now they were young adults, in. They already knew my heart. They already knew our philosophy and ministry. Again, there's no difference in ministry, business, and lifestyle. When you bring that up and grow something from within, there's a whole lot less training that has to happen. And so
Mm.
that's really how this really grew. Is I got to, instead of building a business, I got to continue discipleship in and through the business aspect while now doing ministry on the side.
Man, you just said so much there that's really powerful, because you just, again, connected those worlds that never really were intended to be disconnected in the first place. You've been serving in a ministry context, loving on these teenagers, and then a few years later, now you start a business, and the very relationships that you've been discipling and pouring into, you get to continue that through a context of business. And so tell us a little bit about that. I heard you say 2 moving companies. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so I had a guy that came and found me and said, "Hey, I'm looking at starting these two franchises around this local area. I need somebody to come in and hire a team, bring in a team, and be able to run these things." And I said, "Dude, absolutely, I'll do all of that." At the time, I was also a social worker, so I was a social worker for 15 years. That was my real job that I was getting paid for, and my heart for the lost in that arena. So I left that social work job and brought this in, that this concept of family. And it was a whole different philosophy than what this owner had ever done before. You know, he's used to bringing people in, going through a regime of training and processes, all these things, and instead we brought people in and we sat around the kitchen table and we had conversations on how to run a business
Mm.
and how how plugging people in to where their strengths were was what was going to catapult this business tenfold. Rather than finding holes of where the business needed people at, we found their strengths, put them into their strengths. Now they want to be there, they want to excel, do the best that they can, because we're all in the same vision. And when we can find people in business that can be pushed inside of that same vision that we all have, come along that together, not feel like, oh, I got to sit in front of a computer and I just want to be in front of people. No, I love my job because this is my God-given strength. It's going to
That,
flourish.
that's
Devin, does the moving companies that you began, or the company that you began, are you still doing that? And if you are, was that just kind of for a season?
Yeah, so it was definitely for a season. So one of the things that happened is my ex-wife kicked my son out of the house. So we had 50-50 care because of his behavior, some of his emotional and abuse problems from before. She physically kicked him out of the house. I needed to take him on one-on-one. And that took me into the moving job. So where I could have more flexibility as well as not do social work during the day and then do social work at night with my own family full time.
Yeah.
So it was about 3 years, 4 years that I ran that moving company. And then my son had some pretty bad setbacks and I needed to step away. I sold a majority of the things and I ended up spending close to $100,000 of that profit that I had made just to try and get my son help. And
Yeah.
so if God wouldn't have put me into that place, I wouldn't have had that finances to be able to try and get some help for my son.
Well, and to have the flexibility and freedom to move some things around like that so that you could be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
how's your son doing today? Like, is things in a little healthier place than they were back then?
Well, the correct answer is yes, he is. So it got drastically worse. You know, ended up taking me to my deathbed, taking care of him. And it's amazing that once you're not able to physically take care of somebody, that then the state decides they want to step in and say, "Oh, we should probably help because we don't have any place else for him." So he's in a treatment facility now. He's getting the help that he needs. And as a father, it's hard. But as a father who loves his son, it's also a recognition that I gave everything I could for my son. And he's in a safe place. I'm in a safe place. We're both healing. God's doing great things. And, you know, we continue to plug forward every single day.
That's good. Hey, I want to go back and ask this question. It's really kind of pertains to like the profile of an entrepreneur. And here's how I'm going to frame it. When I heard you say you were a social worker doing social work, this is a broad statement, but generally people that maybe gravitate toward that type of work are not your entrepreneurs. It's someone who maybe they definitely want to make an impact, but they like the structure of, showing up and checking, punching a time clock and kind of doing their thing. And so when I hear the word entrepreneur and social worker, in my mind, those two don't really go together. But tell me about that journey from, doing that type of work to now shifting into that place. Like, were you always entrepreneurial, or was that something new that you had to tap into? Because I think that applies to many pastors. What I just said about social workers, you could apply to a lot of pastors who like the structure, oftentimes a very rigid structure of church life, and the thought of going out on their own and doing something for themselves is a little bit intimidating. So what was that like for you to leap into that world of entrepreneurialism?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm apostolic through and through. I am always a runner. I will run as fast as I can, and then I'll look behind me and realize that God was still 2 months behind me and telling me to, hey, come back here. I believe, John, that in this circumstance, that entrepreneurs do love the freedom we always want that time freedom, that financial freedom. I don't believe it's any different when I was a social worker or a pastor. I wanted that, but I didn't really understand how it all worked. And I believe that for me, I had the passion and the desire to want to help people, to want to serve people, to love them. It's no different right now as an entrepreneur. And so when it comes to like the rigidity, the framework of the business, I believe it is, do you know what your purpose is enough to step out and do what God's calling you to do? Because as a pastor, stepping into the church and leading people, man, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't give pastors enough credit for when they don't get thank you, when they don't, get any type of recognition for that. And in the business world, we see that more as, hey, you know what? I got a new client. Hey, I got a new this, I got a new that. And when it comes to being able to put your own schedule together, are you able to take that chance? Are you able to put faith in what God's calling you to do and step out in it?
Yeah. I would contend there's a good number of pastors that very much are entrepreneurs, the church planters, those kind of with that more apostolic leaning. And so I think pastors have it. I think it's in there, but some clearly gravitate more toward that structure. And, it just feels safe to have someone else tell me when to show up and what I'm supposed to do. But at EntrePastors, again, we are very much encouraging pastors to, in addition to what God's called them to do inside the church, to take that, whatever it looks like, outside the four walls of the church through business, because generally speaking, business seems to provide better than the traditional, structure of church ministry in terms of the financial side of things. So let's keep going on your story of business. Like, then what, after you sold your part in the moving company, then what was the next kind of big milestone as far as your business journey is concerned?
Yeah, so I went through a miraculous healing where Jesus showed up in my room and healed me from the trauma that I'd been through with my son, and he gave me a very specific calling, and the calling is that it's time for you to start your legacy, and it's time to start it right now, and I want you to go and share your story with the world, and I will give you the nations. And because I had given up everything for my son, he now entrusted me with giving up everything for the nations. And so, you leave the 99 to serve the one, to find the one. And now that's really what my goal is in entrepreneurship, is to help people in their businesses, help people in their life, help people in their ministries, to find that calling of God, find that story, find that Revelation 12:11 testimony inside of them to be able to be all that they're called to be. And so I started up a coaching business to be able to look and find what that looks like for each and every person.
Okay, let me pause you right there, because I heard you say something that you felt this calling from God to share your story. Right there, a lot of church-minded people would go, therefore, I started a nonprofit and asked everyone to support me in my journey. Not that that's always the wrong option or that it's a bad thing per se, but I heard you say I started a coaching business. So connect the dots for our listeners. Like, how are you carrying out that calling for ministry through business? Because I want people to, again, we celebrate that at EntrePastors, that business is ministry. So I'm just setting up a softball pitch for you to knock out of the park here. So knock it out, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it comes back to our purpose. I believe it was Billy Graham that once said that you can have all the ministry in the world, but if you don't have finances to be able to build it, it won't last very long. And so the Lord was really showing me personally that if I don't have kingdom finances, I'll have nothing to sow in order to reap the harvest. And this came to me when I was starting out my coaching was, am I going to do this for finances, or am I going to do this for a passion? And I recognize that I have things that I want to do as passion projects. I want to utilize my skills to reach the orphans and to reach the adoption kids and the kids that are in foster care, the families. They don't have the finances to be able to pay me to be able to do that. So how can I get those finances? It's to be able to do the coaching. It's to be able to help people build that business. And is it aligned together? That's the biggest thing, is if you want to be able to serve ministry and life and business all together, you better know what God is calling you to do and what is that alignment that he's having you do. And for me, it's all about being a father. Am I being a father to the people that I'm working with? Am I being a father figure to those that are coming to me wanting to be coached, even those that don't want anything to do with me? You know what? If we don't repel some people, we're not doing this business. We're probably not doing ministry right. Because if Jesus had people that persecuted him and didn't like what he did, you better believe that we're going to have it in our businesses and ministries as well.
Do you have a specialty in your coaching? Like, what is kind of the main message or the specialty you coach around?
Yeah, so it's multiple places. The biggest thing that I help people focus on is their influence, realizing that we have a sphere of influence that God has called us to. And when it comes to building out your coaching program, I spent the good first year and a half helping people build out their coaching business. What does that structure look like? Who are you working with? Who is an acronym for who? Are you going to reach? How are you going to reach them? And what are you going to offer them? So putting those things together was really the beginning assets of how I started out my coaching, really helping people tell their story in a platform that could raise them, earn them some income with that. And since then, started a media agency to where we're building out websites and social media platforms, and also repurposing people's long form content. So we'll take all of the podcasts or the YouTube videos, content creation. We'll repurpose them on all social media platforms, turn them into reels and posts and blogs and emails, and get it out there because we believe that our voices need to be heard.
And let me ask
Go
something,
ahead.
if I could, that kind of piggyback off that, repurposing the content. So this, the book, Authenticity Today, all right? That's your book?
That is it.
All right. So it looks as though, just in the description, that's more your the motive God is searching for. So is that a book that is that you're, are you using that in some way to you know, kind of put yourself in the play in a position of authority or influencer in the space that you're in, or is that more related to student ministry and local church stuff, and that more like that phase of your life?
Yeah, great question. That was written before I started any entrepreneurial journey.
Thought
That
so.
was a
Well,
book written sitting at my kitchen table.
yeah.
In 48 hours, I wrote that entire
Yeah,
book.
and it looks like a great message. But my reason in asking that is, uh, if you know, if we could do just a shameless plug for a second, all that repurposing content, man, we're all about that, and I think that's a great idea, not only for the people that you're serving, but also for yourself.
Hmm.
And you know, we have a publishing house. All right, EntrePastors does. It's EntrePastors Press. And if you are looking for a partner to help in that realm, like to get something out there that could serve you and the different endeavors that you're doing, then we could have a conversation about that, and would love to, if you ever are get serious about putting something else out there that's more related to what you're doing now. Okay.
Yeah, love it. Awesome.
Is
Sounds
that the
good.
only book you've got? You must be on his website right now, Les. Look at you go.
I don't
No, I
know
just
where he
looked it up
found
on
that.
Amazon.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay. Look at you. Look, he's a researcher, man. Like, we're sitting there doing an interview,
I
and
am
he's
a researcher.
researching as on the fly. I love it. So, is that the only book you've got, or do you have other books out there, or other books in the works?
I have one book that is more of what we call lead magnet, and so it is basically the outline of my entire coaching program, and it's called One Rung Away. And I believe that we each need to take one step at a time. Too many times we think that we can just full blower go all in for making a business, and we end up skipping steps, and we usually end up falling over on that ladder. So that's something I haven't fully published. It's out there as like an ebook type of thing
Sure.
that I have on my websites.
Gotcha. Well, a couple more questions for you. What's kind of your big vision as you look to the future and see this world of ministry and business as one? What does ministry look like in the days to come for you, man? What's your dream?
Yeah, we have a ministry called the Orphan Heart, and it's all about helping those who have been through foster care or been adopted or a part of that family. And what we want to do in ministry wise is be able to teach them, to be able to raise them up, to be able to encourage. because even though I was a social worker for 15 years working for the state of Iowa, I got no help. Nobody understood me. Nobody knew what to do. The legislature wouldn't do anything. And we're going to make a difference. I'm going to make sure that nobody else has to go through the pain and the suffering that I went through. And a part of that is making a difference in legislation and all the way across the United States. And so we want to be able to bring hope and healing and healthy communities to these families, and understand as well inside the church what trauma does to a person's body, what mental health means. And it's not always a demon that just needs to be casted out. And once you have healing, doesn't mean that you're perfect. And to understand that there are aspects of what I think sometimes the church forgets is this thing called sanctification. We can be set free and we can be healed, but it doesn't mean that our bodies and our brains are fully recovered from that. And so we're on a mission to be able to continue to educate the churches, educate the school systems, not just to put a Band-Aid on mental health or trauma or foster or adoption, any of that stuff, but to find the root. What is God really doing in these people's lives, and see them for who God created them to be?
I love that. I'm right there with you. This is a different podcast for a different day, but I think that the church often has oversimplified that, or just tried to answer a holistic issue with just the spiritual. And I'm not dismissing the spiritual of, inviting the power of God's Spirit into everything and every aspect of our life. But what you said is so true. Like, we are also physical beings, and trauma is real, has a real physical impact on the body. I've worked in the first responder community in terms of the mental health, issues that we're dealing with there in that community. And I'm not an expert in it, but everything you said, I'm right there with you. Like, it's true. The church needs to have a more holistic approach to that yes, spiritual is part of it. It is. And also so is the physical realities of what has happened inside a human brain when someone experiences trauma, at a young age or at any age. So good stuff.
I believe that when it comes to that aspect, you still have that heart, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're in the ministry or whether you're a stay-at-home mom, any of those types of things, you still have that heart. But why would you want somebody to pay a non-believer to go and get help? Why would you want those? Why would you not charge somebody what you're worth? And as entrepreneurs, we get to do that. They're going to sow a seed, whether it be time or finances. Why not raise those finances for something that you're passionate about, a God-given experience? You know how many times I've been through counseling and I've sat there with a counselor and I'm like, man, you read that straight out of the book and you have never experienced that. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And when we bring that expertise and that experience in, man, there's no reason why we shouldn't be getting paid for that.
Well, okay, so here's another question. This may be a good place to insert this. I always like to sort of wrap up an interview by asking this and presenting it like this. We've got people listening to this podcast right now who are maybe on the fence. They are men and women who love the Lord. They feel a strong sense of calling in their life to serve God and to serve other people. Up to this point, they've had a pretty narrow view of what that looks like. It's vocational ministry. Not that can't be ministry, but they're on the fence thinking about, man, I do know I need some more income to support the lifestyle I desire for my family and for us to be able to give in ways we want to give. I know I'm not going to get that income in this pathway I'm on right now. I hear John and Les and EntrePastors talking about starting a business, but I'm on the fence. I just don't know. What would you say to nudge that pastor forward a little bit and go, man, jump, like get into it, take a step? What would you say to encourage them? Kick them in the seat, whatever you want to give them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to encourage each and every one of you that God created you, all of us, to be a leader. And we're called to be a leader. Looking behind us, somebody is there. Somebody's following us. And we get to lead by example. I believe that each and every one of us are called to be a legend. We're called to be a legend so that people can recognize the experience, the wisdom, the revelation that we carry. And I believe that each and every one of us is called to leave that legacy. We are not called to leave a legacy once we die, because I believe that we're taking that to the grave with us. We got to start right now. And that means that we can't just always be inside the four walls of the church. We've got to be out in the marketplace, because you know what? Marketplace people are doing just as much evangelism as the evangelists that are inside the church or that are outside the church doing it full time. We have to be inside of corporate America. We have got to be breaking down those other barriers, those other walls. And John, I believe that if we're going to have this billion soul harvest that's been this billion soul harvest that's been talked about, it's going to be through media. It's going to be through these podcasts. It's going to be through social media. It's going to be through TV. We're going to reach the millions, and we need people. We need people. God is calling his people to step out with kingdom finances. And I believe that that's how the kingdom finances are going to shift from the world to the church into the kingdom, is by taking it, by getting out there and doing. So many people are out there saying, I'm just waiting for God to do this or to do that. And I believe God's up there sitting there looking at his watch saying, I don't have time here in the kingdom. There's no such thing as time. I've already given it to you. I've already laid it out. Go and do it.
Yeah, that's good. Well said. Devin, if somebody wanted to connect with you and learn more about the work that you're doing or touch base with you, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. I'm on social media platforms. The biggest thing that I do is through Facebook, and you can look me up at devinschubert.com. I also put together one of those free books that I do have is a guide, how to utilize social media and how to be able to put yourself out there like a billboard so people come running to you. And so I put that all out there on guidetoinfluence.com, and you can check that out and be able to get connected with me there.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to put all those links in the show notes of this episode. And just want to say again, thanks for coming on the show and adding value to our community. We're grateful to have you.
Amen. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the EntrePastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the EntrePastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our EntrePastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own EntrePastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.